The longer you own a property, the more money you make with this condition. It depends on what the underlying debt is.
Most real estate investors hit a wall when it comes to funding. Banks say no, credit lines dry up, and opportunities ship away. But what if I told you there was a way to unlock millions in capital without begging banks or risking your own savings? Today on the Real Estate Roundtable, I'm sitting down with a man who cracked the code. He's a nationally renowned investor, educator, and host of the Private Money Show. He's flipped over 400 homes, averaging $60,000 profits per deal, and built a system that turns private money into what he calls an automatic transaction machine. I'm talking about none other than Jay Connor, the private money authority himself. If you've ever wondered where to find the money for your deal, this is the episode you cannot afford to miss. Jay is also giving away something really special today. For everyone listening, go grab Jay's free guide at jconnor.com/money guide and pick up his book, Where to Get the Money Now, at jconnor.com/book. It's free. Just cover the shipping. Jay, tell me a little bit about this book.
Lancelot, I'm so excited you invited me to come along and talk about what I'm so excited and passionate about, private money. And why in the world am I so excited about private money? I'll tell you why. Because private money has had more of an impact on our real estate investing business than any other strategy that we have employed since 2003. I started raising private money in 2009 for my real estate deals. And you know what? I haven't missed out on a deal since 2009 for not having the money. And so that's why I'm so excited about it. So this book, titled Where to Get the Money Now, it's a national bestseller. The subtitle is How and Where to Get Money for Your Real Estate Deals Without Relying on Traditional or Hard Money Lenders. And this is not an ebook, it's a real book. Did you know the United States Postal Service is still in business? So I will autograph express mail this book to you. Where to Get the Money Now. It's so easy to read. I promise you, by the end of reading this book, you'll know where to get money. You'll be in control. You make the rules. You are your own underwriter. You'll always bring home a big check when you buy a property without taking any of your own money to the closing table. So yeah, go to www.jayconner.com/book. I'll rush it right out to you. Lancelot, I can't wait to dive in and talk about this topic. Private money among so many people is like this mysterious, magical, ethereal money over here somewhere. And in our conversation between Act 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, we will unpack how easy peasy lemon squeezy this world is to get all the money for your deals.
So let's go back to the beginning, Jay. We talked a lot about your book right now, which is awesome, guys. Pick up a copy. He's basically giving it away for free. What was the turning point when you realized banks were holding you back?
Oh, my lands. The turning point, I remember it like it was yesterday. I was sitting right here at this desk because what happened was I started investing in single family houses here in Eastern North Carolina in 2003. And from 2003 until January of 2009, the only thing, Lancelot, I knew to do was go to the local bank or the mortgage company, get on my hands and knees and say, please fund my deal. And the banker would make me pull my skirt up and show all my personal assets. And I had to do the financial statement, and they pulled my credit score and appraisals and all that stuff. That worked out okay. I did a ton of deals between 2003 here in Eastern North Carolina and January of 2009 using traditional funding and banking. But your question, what was the pivotal or turning point when I realized banks were holding me back? I'll tell you what the turning point was. I called up my banker. His name was Steve in January of 2009. I had 2 houses under contract to purchase. Steve had funded a ton of deals for me in those first 6 years. And when I'm on the telephone with Steve, I learned like that that my line of credit has been shut down with no notice to me. I said, Steve, what in the world are you talking about? My line of credit is shut down. I've always made my payments on time. I got a great credit score. I got a great record. Why are you telling me you've shut down my line of credit? Steve says, Jay, don't you know there's a global financial crisis going on right now? I said, no, but you just gave me a financial crisis by shutting me down with no notice. And he says, sorry, we're not loaning money out to real estate investors. So I put the phone down on the receiver and I sat here for a moment and I thought. And I want to share a question with you, Lancelot, and your audience that's tuning in here to the show. I want to share with you all a question that I asked myself right after I'd been notified line of credit shut down. And I asked myself this question, and you know the power's in questions, and you can't get the right answers unless you got the right questions. And so I asked myself, I said, Jay, who, it's not how, it's who. I said, who do you know that can help fix your problem? That's the question to myself. By the way, these people running around saying, oh, every problem's an opportunity. I want to throw up. I didn't have an opportunity. I had a problem.
Yeah.
Now, the problem did become an opportunity because you and I wouldn't be visiting here today without that problem. But in the heat of the moment, it's not a, for goodness sake, blankety blank opportunity. It's a problem. Let's face the facts. So I asked myself, who do I know that can help me fix my problem? You know what's magical? Immediately when I asked myself that question, I thought of Jeff Blankenship. Now, Jeff Blankenship lived in Greensboro, North Carolina at the time, a very dear close friend. We know each other through church and gospel, a cappella singing events and all that kind of stuff. And so he was investing in single family houses. So I called up Jeff. I told him what happened. Being cut off from the bank, he says, Jay, welcome to the club. I said, I'm not sure I want to be a member of that club, but what club are you talking about? He said, well, that's the club of having the bank shut you down. He said, my bank shut me down last week. I said, well, Jeff, how are you going to fund your real estate deals? He said, well, have you ever heard of private money? I said, no. He said, have you ever heard of self-directed IRAs and how individuals, ordinary people can take their current retirement funds that they're not happy with and loan that and move it over to a self-directed IRA company and then loan it out to us real estate investors. And then the interest that we pay them is either tax deferred or tax free for them. I said, Jeff, you are talking Greek. You're talking another language. I don't have a clue what you're talking about. I said, what's private money? He said, well, I'm not sure. He said, but there's this gentleman down in Jacksonville, Florida by the name of Ron LeGrand. I said, who's Ron LeGrand? He said, I don't know. He says, but there's this guy, Ron LeGrand, that can teach us about private money. I said, what is it? He said, Jay, I don't know, but Ron says we can get a lot of it really fast. I said, okay. So I went to my very first real estate investing conference with Ron LeGrand in February of 2009 to learn about private money. And boy, did I learn about private money. I came back from that conference, Lancelot. I raised $2,150,000 in new funding from people that had never even heard about private money or private lending or self-directed IRAs. And I didn't ask, I didn't beg, I didn't chase, I didn't sell, I didn't persuade. I raised all this new funding, and how in the world did I do it? I put on my teacher hat, which is called the Private Money Teacher Hat. And I just went about initially teaching people in my own network what private money is, what's private lending, what in the world is self-directed IRAs. And in less than 90 days, by just teaching, leading with a servant's heart, no chasing, no begging, no selling, just offering an opportunity versus asking for money or applying for a mortgage, I was able to attract that money, and I never pitched a deal. I've yet to pitch a deal today. I'll share with you here in this episode, whenever you think it's best, the exact script as to what I say to my private lenders over the phone, and I always get my deals funded without asking for money. And so anyway, I attracted that money. and never missed out on a deal for not having the funding. The traditional way to borrow money, and that's what I did in my first 6 years. The traditional way to borrow money for your real estate deals is to go to the lender, and in your mind, you think they make the rules. They do. Traditionally, we think whoever's got the money makes the rules. They set the interest rate, they set the term, they set the length of the note, they set the maximum loan to value, they charge points, that whole thing. And you just have to bow down to whatever they're saying. That's all we know until you come into my world and we turn this thing upside down and turn it upside down to the banks. And guess what? In this world, you never ask for money. You never apply for a mortgage. You never have to give your credit score. There's never an appraisal on the properties because we're not asking for a mortgage. We're offering an opportunity, and we're leading with teaching to people that have never heard of this world. I got 47 private lenders right now funding my deals. Not one of them had ever heard of private money, private lending, self-directed IRAs until I taught them about it. And some of them are accredited investors. But you know what, Lancelot? They don't even know they're an accredited investor because they don't even know what an accredited investor is.
Talk about that for sure.
So anyway, that's how we got started in all this.
Yeah, so there's always from my standpoint, and a lot of investors are afraid to ask for money. How did you overcome that fear? I know you're not asking for money; you're basically teaching them stuff. But how did you overcome to get them together in a room? I heard you go to church, so that's probably one of the avenues. But is there any other avenue that you got gathered the folks together and gave them, or is it one-on-one teaching? How do you do this? Tell me a little bit about that.
When you're talking with someone that could be a potential private lender, you can't be getting ready. You got to be ready. Your net worth will never exceed your self worth. Your net worth will never exceed your level of confidence. So, how do you become confident? You become confident knowing what in the world you're talking about. How do you learn what you're talking about? If you've never raised private money, reading my book's a good place to start to learn what you're talking about. Because, first of all, Lancelot, one of the most common questions I get from people that haven't raised private capital before is they say, Jay, how do I start? Like, how do I start raising private money? I'm fearful of asking, I'm fearful of rejection, all that kind of stuff. The first place you start is owning the real estate between your ears. What I'm talking about is mindset. You got to own your mind before you start talking about private money. So, how do you do that? What you want to learn is what in the world is it you're going to teach, right? What are you going to share with people initially that have never heard about this world? So, you want to learn. Now, my world of private money is single family houses, right? There's all kinds of ways to use private money. You can use private money for single family houses. I've flipped over 500 houses now in a small area over all these years. And I don't say that to brag. I'm just saying there's a case to be made to own and dominate a small market instead of trying to be a competitor in like a big market. So, what is it that you're going to teach and share? One big secret, as I just said, my 47 private lenders that are funding my deals, they never heard of this. They never heard of private money. They never heard of self-directed IRAs. They're not sophisticated investors. Like at my private money live events, the privatemoneyconference.com, at those live events, Lancelot, I have private lenders come to the event for my attendees to meet. They're ordinary people. Just, I got teachers, I got retired teachers, I got retired law enforcement officers, I've got engineers in civil service, I've got ordinary people, ordinary walks of life. And so, owning the real estate between your ears, people are fearful of asking, people are fearful of rejection. You know what I say to them? I said, let me ask you a question. How can you be rejected if you never ask anybody for anything? You can't be rejected, right? You're sharing a world with people that they never heard about. Okay. Now, As I said, you can use private money for all kinds of things, all kinds of asset classes. You can use private money for multifamily, as you've been involved in, Lancelot. You've been involved in multifamily deals. And so it's all you can use private money for self-storage. You can use private money for land. You can use private money for any kind of commercial. I've got a friend that's in an $800,000 office building, all funded with private money. The difference is it's all the same money. It's just a matter of how you structure the deals. In my world of single family houses, everything that I do is what's called asset backed debt. Asset backed debt, which means I'm not raising money for a fund as you would in syndication, right? Everything I'm doing is what's called so asset backed debt. That's the fancy term. Uh, Everything I do in slang is what we call one offs. So you got a single family house, you got a private lender, maybe a couple of private lenders that are funding that property, and they get their own promissory note, they get their own deed of trust or mortgage securing their promissory note. As a result, the SEC does not regulate this part of private money. The SEC, Security Exchange Commission, which a lot of new capital raisers are fearful of because they're afraid they're going to break the rules and all that kind of stuff. Guess what? There's no rules to break when you're doing single family houses unless you're borrowing unsecured funds, which is a big no, unless you actually are raising money for a fund. Now, if you're raising money for a fund, SEC's got its regulations, of course, but with single family houses where the private lenders have their each own promissory note and a deed of trust or mortgage that's collateralizing that note, that's asset backed debt. But anyway, I got so excited, Lancelot, I forgot the last thing you asked me.
That's funny. So last thing I was like, how do you overcome the fear?
Oh,
Basically
yeah.
asking for
How do you
money.
overcome the fear? Mindset. So, one way you can overcome fear is just screw it up really bad and learn lessons from screwing it up. Like, how do you really get good at something? Is doing it, right? Practicing it. But you want to have the foundation, right? You want to have the foundation of what to teach people as to how this opportunity works, how they're protected, how they can get their money back in case of an emergency. And so you see, you are seen as the expert. Now, one thing that causes fear and lack of confidence is if somebody's looking to raise private money for their deals and they've never done a real estate deal, right? That's who's going to loan me money and I've never done a real estate deal. You know what? That's a pretty doggone really good question. Who is going to loan you money and you've never done a deal? I say join forces with somebody that's done a bunch of deals, right? That knows how to structure a deal and learn on the job while you're earning, right? And joint venture with somebody, get a coach, get a mentor, work with somebody that's doing it. But the other answer to that question of who's going to loan me money, and I'm fearful about that, here's one of the answers. If you don't pay your private lender, the property does. Let me repeat that. If you don't pay your private lender, the property does. Well, that's why the private lenders are protected. We don't borrow more than 75% of the after repaired value of a single family house. Nice big equity cushion that's protecting the private lender. Notice I did not say a maximum of 75% of purchase price.
No.
Big difference.
Yeah.
I always bring, here's a writer downer. I always bring home a big check when I buy a property without taking any of my own money to the closing table. Here's the question: who wants to get paid to buy houses? Without taking,
Everybody.
without taking any of your own money to the closing. Hey, look, I always bring home a big check when I buy a single family house because I'm borrowing more than I need to purchase the property. But that only works, of course, when you're buying a property that's distressed and it needs renovation, it needs rehab. And so that's why you're buying it at a discounted price. But yeah, this whole world of private money puts you in control. How do you get the confidence? How do you overcome the fear? Know what it is that you are offering and teaching and know how to protect your private lender. Know when you do the business this way, they are not going to lose any money. Because listen, I've done over 500 flips of I started before HGTV was even conceived or sexy.
So out of that 500 properties, I have a question about this. What systems allowed you to scale without burning out on those 500? Because that's a lot of properties. I was thinking, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to get into flipping maybe a little bit. Now I have a contractor's license, et cetera, et cetera. I was like, maybe I could do one a month or one a quarter or something like that. That wouldn't be too stressful. But 500, that's a lot. That's like in 500, let's say, even in 20-year time, that's what, 200 or what's it, like 25 a year or something like that. That's a lot of properties to flip.
Yeah, that's what we average. So let's go back to day one. First year, 3 houses. First year, three houses. Second year, 5 houses. So obviously, I didn't start out scaling that. So how did it scale? I'll tell you how it scaled. Software, as in technology, CRM, having everything in one place to communicate with the team. And that's the second piece of scale, team. The only thing I do today is make decisions. I decide what marketing levers I want to pull and test to have motivated sellers reaching out to us, me, wanting to sell their house. Hey, look, Lancelot, I ain't bought a house out of the multiple listing service since 2019 because there haven't been any deals. There ain't been any deals in the multiple listing service, right? When I get a house rehabbed ready to sell, I put it in the multiple listing service. I got multiple offers the same weekend, and boom, I'm under contract. Because in our area, even today, there's a lack of inventory. Now,
Still,
that's not the case. That's not the
hmm,
case everywhere, right? Like down
no.
in Florida, it's pulled back a lot back there in Florida. But as I said, how do you scale this? Software and people. Go ahead.
Is this what you call the automatic transaction machine?
Yes. For example,
What does that
my
mean for an investor? Tell me about it.
the automatic transaction machine is that you've got the team in place, you got an oiled machine, a greased machine, and most importantly, you have a system.
Yeah.
What's my system? Let's unpack, and I'll try to do that 30,000-foot view, right? But my system, first of all, I got to have the right team. So my acquisitionist, I have not talked to a seller of a single family house in I don't know how many years, personally, myself. I've had the same acquisitionist, her name is Kim, for 20 years. 20 years. So she talks to all the off-market sellers of single-family houses, right? So she works out of her home, and she and I never talk. Literally, we never talk. All of our communication is in the software. When I started out, Lancelot, I was the most disorganized mess you have ever seen. Hey, look, I ran this business off of Post-it notes everywhere. I had post. They were on the wall. They're on my lamp here on my desk. They're on the hand receiver, my phone. They're in the floor. Post-it notes and yellow pads everywhere. Until, thank goodness, I discovered a wonderful CRM that it's a proprietary software for real estate investors that just myself and my mastermind members use. And so all communication is there. It's like a lead comes in. So where all these leads come from? We're digressing. We're not talking about private money. But anyway,
It's fine because it all ends up in private money at the end. Because how do you buy the deals that we're talking about right now? But we have a lead up. I told you this is a story style interview. Okay, so we gotta build it up to the point where you can that's how you. Where's this how you use that money?
you can't use the money unless you got leads.
Exactly. I could talk all day about how easy it is to raise private money.
Yeah.
But let's find out how we can actually use that private money.
By the way, Lancelot, speaking of leads, before I get into the system, speaking of leads, so I'm going to guess that you have heard the following quote from the guru on stage talking to real estate investors, new real estate investors, and they say something to this effect. Oh, just get the deal under contract. The money will show up.
Yeah, I love that.
Or just hearing that, I want to be like the Kool-Aid guy that runs into the brick wall on TV. Or they'll say, they'll say, oh, money finds deals. Now, let me just ask a question. Does money have legs that's like running around looking for deals? Or you get a deal under contract and boom, that drone just flew to your front door porch step and boom, dropped a box of money on your front door step because money heard that you got a deal under contract. That's the most stupid thing. That seminar crap, excuse my French. That is seminar junk right there. Look, money ain't going to show up looking for you, right? You get a deal under contract. So that's why I practice and teach the money comes first. Now, look, if you're a wholesaler and you get a deal under contract, of course money's going to chase that contract because you already got your buyer's list built. But what did you do? You got the money lined up first. If you're a wholesaler and you got good training, what's the first thing they teach you to do? Go get your buyer's list. What's that? It's the money. It's the money. Get the money lined up first. So whether you're wholesaling, you're getting your buyer's list lined up. If you're rehabbing and staying in deals, you're getting your private money lined up first. There's always going to be deals. Back to the lead generations and the automation. So I have right now, I think it's 7 or 8, at least 7 or 8. I have 7 or 8 different marketing funnels that are on automatic every day, shooting in, bringing in motivated sellers, leads into our software. Where are they coming from? So I have all these different vendors, Google paid ads. Now, I'm not doing pay-per-click as if you're managing your own Google account, right? But the vendor is doing Google pay-per-click, and then they're charging you per lead that's coming in. Whether it's this vendor or that vendor, somebody that's motivated to sell their house, they go on Google online and they type in sell my house fast, how to sell my house fast, how to sell my distressed house, how to sell my house with no repairs. There's 75 different key search phrases. So odds are, see, I love competing with myself, right? I got a good friend here in Morehead City, North Carolina. His name's Clark. His wife is Liza. They own 5 different restaurants, and every one of them are different kinds of restaurants, right? And so they compete with themselves, but they dominate the market, right? So I like to compete with myself and dominate the market. So I got all these different lead sources. Now, when the lead comes in, automation. Ron LeGrand taught me the less I do, the more I make. Get out of the way, for goodness sakes. So lead comes in, and by a Zapier software attachment, that lead automatically goes into our CRM, and it tracks where the lead came from. Look, if you can't track and measure where you're spending your marketing money, you cannot improve it. You cannot prune. You can't get rid of what's not working. You can't keep what is working because you don't know, right? But through the tracking, we know where every lead is coming from. Now, cost per lead is important, but the most important thing is cost per conversion. Cost per conversion. So how much money did you spend with that vendor A to buy a house? Not how much was their. You can have another vendor that's got cheaper cost per lead, but they don't convert, right? Mm-hmm. So cost per conversion. So we got all the leads coming in. Now, how's the system work on automatic? How the system works is, okay, here comes the lead. It's in the CRM. My acquisitionist and my lead manager, hello, E-I-E-I-E-I-O. Lead manager, she's been with me for 6 years. Her job is to make sure no leads fall through the crack. Yeah. So my acquisitionist, Kim, is a human being. Human beings are not perfect. Human beings get distracted. So my lead manager, her name's Trixie, her job is to make sure that none of these leads are falling through the crack and that Kim is on top of them, stink on a stick, so nothing gets missed, right? So here comes the lead. Kim sees it, and now when that lead comes in, more automation, we have an AI assistant named Bailey. What does Bailey do? As soon as that lead comes in, within 2 minutes, Bailey is now automatically texting that lead and setting the phone appointment for Kim, the acquisitionist, to call them. Bailey gets 3 out of 4 leads a phone appointment for Kim. So there's the phone appointment. Kim calls them up. Kim gets the information from the seller. And now she puts that information in the CRM, and now, boom, she puts it in, and now I'm notified I got a lead to review. After I finish this show with you, Lancelot, I got 13 brand new seller leads to review. They just came in since yesterday afternoon. And I'm going to review them leads, and I'm going to decide which ones that we want to get a value from our realtor on and which ones maybe we want to go look at. So I'll look at them, and then I go into CRM in my quiet time, and I decide which ones to get the realtor opinion. So I say, get realtor opinion. Guess what? That software automatically emails the realtor in that area to get their opinion. In less than 24 hours, the realtor opinion comes back and goes in the software. Now we've got all the information we need to decide whether we're going to go look at the property or not. So we look at those numbers, and now we decide to go look at the property. So now I say, look at the property. Now Kim sets the appointment for the realtor and my project manager to go look at the property and estimate repairs. Those repairs come back to Kim. Kim puts them into software. I look at, now I got all the numbers I need, and now I make the offer. Now that goes over to Kim. She makes the offer, negotiates the deal. We go into contract, hopefully, and then we close. All that's done through software and the team.
That is awesome. What a fluent system you got going on over there. So,
well, without the system, I'd be running around with my hair on fire, and I don't have enough hair left to get on fire.
It's kind of red too, so I don't know. It looks like it's on fire all the time. Can you share a deal that simply wouldn't have been possible without private money?
Which one of 500?
Let's say all of them.
So,
is there any specific one that was like so tight?
So recently we had a lead come in. His name is Brian, and Brian does not live in North Carolina. He lives in South Carolina, and he inherited an oceanfront condominium here at Atlantic Beach, North Carolina, and totally furnished, needed hardly no renovations whatsoever. And so the lead came in by one of our Google vendors, automatically came into the software. And here's the numbers. Oh, what were the 3 layers of motivation? 3 layers of motivation. That's what you call stacked motivation. Absentee out-of-state owner, inherited, and is going to the courthouse sale steps because it's in foreclosure. So lots of motivation going on here. I bought the property using private money, and I closed in 7 days. I had to close in 7 days. I don't want that property going to the courthouse steps, the foreclosure sale, and compete with all the other real estate investors. I bought it for $480,000 cash. We're using private money. If I hadn't had the private money available, boom, there you go. Close it in 7 days. Now the rehab, very out of the ordinary, $12,000, nothing, $12,000. The only thing it needed was paint. It needed paint, a little bit of sheetrock repair. That was it. And beautiful furniture, totally furnished. You pull back the curtain, you're looking out the sliding glass door, and there's windows in every room, the bedrooms, looking out over the ocean. You feel like you're on a cruise ship in this condo. Anyway, I sold it for $618,000, and I was in and out in 6 weeks. And that would not run the numbers. 618 less 12 less 480 less 30,000 in realtor fees. That deal, I think I netted over $160,000 net. The net in 6 weeks wouldn't have happened without private money. And being able to close fast. Now, You're not going to close fast without the private money or your own money. And you got to have a relationship with a closing agent or a real estate attorney that's going to do your title search and get that done. And you got to have your relationship with your realtor, if you're not one, to actually know what's the after repaired value that you can sell it for. So again, having those team members in place allows you to close fast, because time kills deals, and the older the colder.
That is so true. So that's an amazing deal. Do you ever keep any of these for like long-term holds, or are they all flip, 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 flip?
It depends on how I buy them.
Because I mean, ocean front property for $400,000. You kidding me? You're looking out at the Atlantic Ocean. That's, in my book, that would have been a keeper Airbnb all day long, like short-term rental. You only have to fix up like $12,000. You're in it for $500,000. It's probably going to make you somewhere around $100,000 or north in short-term rental opportunities. So I would have been like, hey, yeah, I could make 160 right now, or I could make 100, 120 a year on this puppy.
That's a great question. I don't like to leave private money buried in a house.
Gotcha.
However, today the market has changed very recently. As recent as 2 weeks ago, First Citizens Bank, right down the street here on Bridges Street in Morehead City, North Carolina. By the way, I do a lot of business with First Citizens. I got a lot of money parked there and great friends there. They've got great service. I don't borrow money from them. But, and here's why. 2 weeks ago, did you know at First Citizens Bank, if you're a landlord and you wanted to invest in a single family house for the long term, and you want to hold it for the long term, 8.3% plus points and origination fees, etc. And they make the rules, right? They make the rules. I'm borrowing at 8%. So with rates at 8.3%, I'm actually paying my private lenders less than the local bank today is charging. So when I said a moment ago, it depends on how I buy it. Now, I will say this, the longer you own a property, the more money you make with this condition. It depends on what the underlying debt is, right? The longer I owned a different condo at a place at the beach a few years ago, the more money I lost because of the underlying debt, and I could only rent it out for 13 weeks out of the year. You see, that property that we were just talking about that I bought for $480 and sold for $618, you can only rent it out for 13 weeks out of the year.
Gotcha.
There's no market. There's no market middle of September through the end of April. So the only income on that property is Memorial Day through Labor Day. But anyway, back to how I buy it depends on how I sell it. So I don't only use private money for buying properties. I buy properties on what we call terms. So I'll buy single family houses. One way that I love is buy it subject to the existing note. So what in the world is that? I could give you a 3-day seminar on buying subject to the existing note, but I'll give you a 3-minute seminar instead. So a buying subject to the existing note of a single family house means that you buy the property, buy the single family house, or it could be a duplex, quadplex, triplex, whatever. You buy it subject to the existing mortgage, which means the seller of that property agrees to transfer title and ownership to your entity and leave the mortgage in their name. You're not assuming the note. You're not assuming the mortgage. If you assume it, the bank has to approve you. When you buy subject to the existing note, the lender's got nothing to do with this transaction whatsoever. This is already on the settlement statement HUD on line number 203 and 204, depending on which side of the settlement that you're on. But it's already there. It says subject to existing mortgage. So you may ask the question, who in their right mind would sell me a house and leave the mortgage in their name and count on me to make the payments?
Yeah.
Who would agree to that? I'll tell you who would agree to that. Somebody that needs debt relief right now. Debt relief, right? And so when I buy it subject to the existing note, then I'm typically going to sell it on lease purchase or rent to own. Okay. Look, did you know that over 85% of all mortgages right now in the U.S. have got an interest rate between 3 and 4%? Between all that refinancing that took place in the past few years. When you buy subject to the existing note on a single family house and the mortgage is between 2.75 and 4%, you are borrowing free money, essentially. You're inheriting an interest rate of 3%, 3.25%, 3.5%, or whatever. Now, I can use private money in second position, a junior lien, if there's equity in the property, and use private money to, like, let's say they're behind on payments. I've got a whole foreclosure system where we track every foreclosure in our market, and we help these people get back on their feet, and we put money in their pocket because they're not going to get any money at the foreclosure steps, right? Courthouse steps. We help them get back on that, but we buy those properties subject to the existing note. They're in arrears or they wouldn't be in foreclosure. So I can use private money if there's equity in the property, because we got to protect our private lender. And I'll use private money to bring payments current that are past due, or if there's some renovation that's needed, I can use private money for that. So that's a long answer to your short question. Do you ever keep any of those properties? It depends on how I bought it. Hey, my favorite property today, right now, here today, Lancelot, is the farmhouse. That's my favorite property, the farmhouse in Newport, North Carolina. We did a $150,000 renovation on that property, that house last year. It's 4-bedroom, 2-bath. It sleeps 10 people, turned it into an Airbnb short-term rental. If I was renting it out to a straight renter, I'd bring in $2,200 a month, $2,200 a month. And in my first 12 months, I am tracking over $100,000 in this first 12 months as a short-term rental, because it's in a high demand area. We live here near Cherry Point Naval Air Station, Cherry Point Base here in Havelock, North Carolina. And so contractors are, right now, I got 6 guys. In the farmhouse, 3 miles out in the country, but 10 minutes from where they're working. They're paying me $23,360 for 90 days of rent. $23,360 for 90 days of rent. And good night, 2,200 times. I barely would have gotten that if I'd rented it out all year to a renter.
Yeah. But it makes sense. That business model is what it is because of the possibilities. Also, there's risks involved. Like I like your area because it's high demand. There's not a lot of properties probably that are doing Airbnb in your area. You come to my neck of the woods here in Florida, and you can find probably 20, 30, 40 properties within a 1 or 2 mile radius that are doing Airbnb. So the competition is much more steeper. Your ratios change. You have a occupancy rate of 50% instead of like your 80-90% in some areas where it's scarce. Or yours is like a typical too. It's a farmhouse. Like, how many places do you have where you can rent a farmhouse? It's something really unique. Some people would just want to get away to live in a farmhouse for a week just to try it out. So that's also a cool like theme.
Yeah,
going on,
it sits on a 52-acre working farm. I own the farm as well. We lease it out to a young couple. They got chickens, they got eggs, they got cows, they got goats, they got pigs, and it's just beautiful out there. Just 3 miles off of the highway, quiet. I got a fire pit. I got cornhole. I got giant Jenga, beautifully landscaped. Really, it's just a beautiful little 3-acre plot.
That's awesome. So let's get to your book here, okay? I know we talked about it in the beginning, guys, but here we go again. Your book and systems, where to get the money now. How did that become a blueprint that separates from anything else similar? How did that become a blueprint? Tell me about that.
It's a blueprint in so many ways, Lancelot, because it dispels so many myths that real estate investors have. that are looking for funding. They think they got to beg and chase and pitch deals. Oh, here's one way it dispels all the myths. Let me share with you, Lancelot, and your audience, how I get my deals funded, the exact script as to how I get my deals funded by my private lenders without asking for money. That's what makes it all different, the blueprint. It's all about getting funding for your deals without ever asking for money, right? So here's the best way I can explain this to your audience is a little role play. So, Lancelot, let me do this setup. So, what I'm getting ready to share with everybody here is the exact words I use to call up one of my private lenders to get my deal funded. And I'm not going to pitch the deal. I'm not going to ask for money. And I get my deal funded 100% of the time. I call it the good news phone call. The good news phone call. All right. So let's do a little setup. Here's how the good news phone call works. So let's do a few hypotheticals here. Hypothetically, Lancelot, first of all, let's say you and I have known each other for a while, and let's say that you and I go to church together. We've known each other for a while at church. Therefore, I like you, I know you, I trust you. All that's in place just from the church affiliation. And let's also presuppose in this example, let's presuppose that you worked for a company in the past and you no longer work for them. And let's say you had a 401k. Let's say you still have a 401k at the previous employer's plan, 401k plan, and you haven't moved that money out. And quite frankly, you're just not really happy with how that 401k is performing, that is still with the previous employer. Let's also presuppose that I have already put on my teacher hat and I've already shared with you. Let's say we went to Starbucks or Dairy Queen. I like Dairy Queen better than Starbucks. And we got some ice cream. And I said something to you along the lines in our conversation. I said, Lancelot, by the way, let me ask you a question. Did you know there's a way people can make unlimited money per year tax free? And in that conversation, you say, what are you talking about, Jay? In that conversation, I told you about self-directed IRAs. I told you about being a private lender and how private lenders make high returns safely and securely. And that I've got a program that may or may not be for you, but here's what it looks like. And you heard the program. I taught you the opportunity, right? You love the interest rate of 8%. You love how you can get your money back in case of an emergency, blah, 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 blah. And in that conversation, you told me, and by the way, don't miss the secret sauce, folks. Don't miss the secret sauce. In that initial conversation, I'm not talking any deals. Here's a writer downer. Desperation has a smell to it. Desperation has a smell. Look, the worst time to be raising private money is when you need it, for goodness sakes, for a deal, right? So separate the conversations with a new potential private lender of the opportunity in the program and then having a deal to fund, right? In this example, Lancelot, we've been to Dairy Queen. We've had our strawberry sundae, and I had my banana split because I like banana splits. And we talked about the program. And in the conversation, I learned that you've got $150,000 in a 401k at the previous employer. You don't like the volatility of that in the stock market. And now here we are talking about private money. You're going, man, I like the sound of that. So I introduce you to the self-directed IRA company that I recommend to move your money from that 401k over to the self-directed IRA company to where you can truly self-direct and you can loan it out and you're going to either earn tax deferred or tax-free interest investing in my deal, depending on the type of account you got. So you've moved your money over to the self-directed IRA and you're ready to go. And I have told you I'll put your money to work for you just as soon as possible. There's the setup. Here's the great news phone call. So I call you up. Lancelot answers the phone. We have a little chit chat. We talk about how great the banana split was a couple of weeks ago. And then I say, Lancelot, I've got great news for you. I can now put your money to work. I've got a house in Newport, North Carolina, under contract with an after repaired value of $200,000. Now, the funding required for the deal is $150,000, which matches up to what you've got in your self directed IRA account. Now, closing is going to be next Friday. I'll need for you to wire your funds from your self directed IRA account to my real estate attorney's trust account by next Thursday. I'm going to have my real estate attorney email you the wiring instructions. That's the end of the conversation. The most stupid thing I could say to Lancelot is, do you want to fund the deal? Of course, Lancelot wants to fund the deal. And I'll tell you 3 big reasons why Lancelot is dying on the vine to wire that money to my real estate attorney's trust account. Number 1 reason, he trusted me, for goodness sakes, to move his money to the self-directed IRA company, waiting for me to put his money to work, right? That's number 1. Number 2 reason Lancelot is wanting to fund my deal is he knows I'm not going to bring a deal to him to fund that does not match the criteria, the underwriting of a deal that I already taught him. I taught Lancelot I don't allow my private lenders to loan me more than 75% of the after repaired value. Do you remember the numbers I just told him in that phone call? I told him the
150, 250.
property has got an after repaired value of $200,000. Funding required is $150,000. That is 75% of the after repaired value. And the third reason Lancelot is just can't wait to wire that money is because he's not making any money until I put his money to work, which I promised him I would do. As a result of this scenario, I'm ethically and morally bound to borrow his money, to invest his money, because I promised him that's what I would do.
That's amazing. So, what's the return for someone that invests their money?
8%. No points, no origination fees. And you know what's interesting, Lancelot? People will ask me, they say, Jay, how in the world are you still paying your private lenders 8%? Since 2009. They'll say, for goodness sakes, 2020, COVID, I can tell you what it was, 0.7%. A year and a half ago, you could have gotten 5.5% at First Citizens Bank for a 7-month CD. They say, Jay, the rates are all over the board. Market's up, market's down, market's sideways. How in the world are you still paying everybody 8%? And why do they like that? I say there's 2 reasons. Number 1, 8% is a whole lot more than right now. 2.75 is what it is right now in a 7-month CD. It's 8%. It's more than 5.25%, 5.5 from a year and a half ago. So it's still more. It's backed by real estate. And the second reason, I make the rules. They don't.
Is it 8% on the total amount that he funded you? So he would get 8% on the 150, or is it 8% a year? How does that work?
8% APR. So 8% annual percentage rate. So it's not 8% on the deal, regardless of the term. It's 8%. So if you borrow $100,000 and you use it all year, that's $8,000.
Got you. Okay, that makes sense. That's better
And
for
there's no sharing in the equity. There's no sharing in the profits. This is not joint venturing. The private lender is the bank.
Yeah.
Meaning the private lender acts in the same capacity as the bank. Private lender gets the same protection as if I had gone to the bank to borrow the money. They get the promissory note. They get the deed of trust that's collateralizing the note. They get named on the insurance policy as the mortgagee. They're named on the title policy, additional insured. They got all the same protection as a bank. So the private lender is the bank.
It just so many protective layers that I don't see why somebody wouldn't do it. Especially if, hey, my money's invested in a CD. You know, I always tell my friends that have CDs, I'm like, are you kidding me? See, I'm
Right?
like, are you 90 and trying? Like, why do you have a CD still? It doesn't make any sense in any kind of market shape anymore. In my opinion, you're better off buying US Treasury bonds, for God's sakes, than locking your money in with a CD. We just talked about how they're protected and profitable, which makes a ton of sense. Next point is we're going to talk a little bit about mentorship. Okay. You've taught thousands of investors. What kind of results have your students achieved in the past?
I just interviewed Willie's in my mastermind membership. He came into the mastermind this past, I guess, about a year and 4 months ago. He now has $2.3 million in private money that he just rotates from property to property. Crystal, Crystal is so wonderful. Came into my world. Ashley now actually helps me mentor and coach our mastermind members and our platinum coaching clients. Crystal right now has over 5 million that she uses from property to property. I'm thinking of Eric and Erica out in Mississippi, actually Poplarville, Mississippi. I think population 3,000 or so, and they have about 3.5 million in private money. Those are some that just come to mind off the top of my head. However, I've got mentees, I've got coaching clients that don't have one penny in private money because I can't make you do anything, right? I can inspire you. I can give you the knowledge. I can give you exactly the strategy. But to get private money, the person raising the money actually has to do the work. Now, with my mastermind members, I actually help them raise money and like force them to. I do webinars with them. I do live webinars. They'll invite people to the webinar. I'll do the talking. We'll raise private money. I record audios for them that they can share with their connections as to how private money works. But yes, in our coaching program and our mastermind membership, we have so many. I've just lost count of the wonderful success stories. That's why I'm continuing to be in this business and coach others, Lancelot. There's no better feeling I have than being part of transformation. I remember Crystal when we first started working together. She promised herself she would never drive her kids through fast food. She was working over 70 hours a week as a occupational therapist overseeing multiple clinics, making multiple six figures a year, but it was running her and she wasn't running it. She found herself about 9 o'clock at night one evening going through fast food to feed her kids in the back seat. And we started working together in real estate and raising private money. And within 9 months, she retired from the day job after over 20 years running clinics. And then she went to being able to homeschool her kids. And now she lives on the beach and she walks to the ocean. And it's wonderful. Back to Eric out there in Mississippi. He was working for the railroad, had been for years, an hour drive each way to work for the railroad. In 7 months of us starting to work together, he retired from working from the railroad. And by the way, he's in his 30s. So you can actually retire from a career in your 30s. And he and his wife are full-time real estate investing. So I have no better feeling than being a part of other people's transformation and really creating the life that they want.
Is that why you believe mentorship is a shortcut to success?
Oh, it is a shortcut to success. When I first started joining and becoming a member of other masterminds, which right now I'm a member of 3 mastermind groups that I don't run, that I'm a member. And when you are surrounded with other people of like minds, that is the shortcut to get you there so much quicker, save you so much money. I mentioned in the beginning of your show, Lancelot, that those first 6 years, the only thing I knew to do was go to the local bank or a mortgage company. If I had gotten training or gotten a coach or a mentor, I would have known all that stuff within the first month. But no, I spent a lot of money. If you think coaching and education is expensive, you ought to try just doing the business with no help.
Yeah, I can attest to that for sure. You spent a lot
Me
of money,
too.
trial and
I lost
error, you know?
hundreds.
Oh yeah,
I lost
hundreds of
thousands of
dollars.
dollars starting out with because I didn't get the right training.
Yeah, even just like testing marketing, like you just sink money into it. Oh, does this work? Does that work? Does that work? I could probably attest to at least a couple $100,000 lost in ether that never brought me anything in marketing and other investments, shiny objects, this, that, the other thing in real estate that you like. Everybody dangles this in front of realtors That's one of the things I just talk. It's like a cool meme going around online. I don't know if you've seen it. Is two guys are talking. It's like, you know how you make money in real estate? Do we sell houses? No. Do we get buyers? No. We sell leads to the agents. Basically. And I'm like, you are not freaking kidding me, because you guys are always making the money. Doesn't, no matter what. We are always buying these leads no matter what. So that's, and just for maybe a little add on to your business model, because you're generating a lot of leads. I'm pretty sure you already do it, but the leads that are not as shiny or as good for you to use, you probably refer them out to an agent or sell it to an agent for a fee. And then you make money off of that too. Is that a way that you're doing it?
Have you been looking over my shoulder?
I have a few books over there.
Yeah, but all these books were written in the 1800s.
They look beautiful, by the way.
Thank you. The story you just shared, I have not seen that meme, but I get it. Yeah, please email me a picture, a screenshot of that meme.
If I find it again, I'll send it to you. I was just browsing through it. Oh my God, that hit me like in the heart.
I bet AI could find it for me.
Yeah.
But the story you just shared, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the gold rush and all them people moving out to California. Who made the money? The people selling the pans.
Exactly. That people that sell the tools for them. Exactly. That's the same thing like in real estate. Like even top producers, yes, but the top producers have their own lead generation systems that similar to what you got going on, that bring in all the deals and bring in all the leads. And then they have systems and agents brushing through and combing through those deals. And then they go and close them. The smaller people that are doing $3-4 million in sales are probably working off their sphere of influence. Then you got your $5 to $10 million people that are probably buying leads. $5 to $10 to $20 million producers, they're probably buying the leads to get to that level. Above that, you got to have a system that's doing it for you. That's where you spend your money instead of sending $5,000, $10,000 on Zillow every month to get leads from. You figure out a system to generate your own leads, because that's all that Zillow does. They generate leads and then they sell it to you for a premium.
That's right.
No, Jay, you got the perfect system. Maybe you guys can join Jay's mastermind and figure out how to get leads. That in itself is probably worth every penny. So tell me, for a brand new investor listening right now, what's the first step they should take to raise private money?
The first step to raise private money, again, is to know what you're talking about, to learn what it is that you are offering, to learn how private money works, to build your confidence. So, yeah, the first thing is get your mindset right and to get the knowledge, and just simply order my book, jayconner.com/book.
For sure.
That'll get you started.
So how do rising interest rates and tighter banks create new opportunities for private money investors?
How do rising interest rates, you're talking about institutional rates?
Yes, not private money interest rates for, say, the Fed, or interest rates, let's say, for the banks, which is correlated to the treasuries. So the rising of those interest rates and tighter banks and criteria from banks create new opportunity for private money investors.
That's a good question, Lancelot. Let me let you take a stab at that. I'm not sure there's a direct correlation between institutional rates rising or falling and that having any difference of a opportunity for a private lender. However, there is a direct correlation. Obviously, the lower rates are in CDs, the more interested a private lender would become, for sure, because there's more spread between what you as a borrower would pay a private lender and what the local bank would offer. My crystal ball, everybody's got one, just like something else, but my crystal ball says rates will continue to come down for some period of time for a number of reasons. That's a whole nother conversation. And the more those rates come down, particularly rates that you can get on your money in a local bank, the more opportunity for people to be interested in becoming a private lender.
But also, I think for us as investors, it's looking to be an easier avenue than submitting. I'm self-employed. I have 4 LLCs and I have a nonprofit and I own several houses, properties, and cars and whatnot. And when I go to the bank to get a loan, you don't want to know. Like an average person with a W-2 says, "Oh my God, the paperwork." Try to do paperwork for P&L for five companies in mid year, going through everything without, because I don't have an accountant. I do everything myself. I do all the paperwork myself. So when I'm trying to apply for a loan, that's 5 businesses, 5 P&Ls, statements in the middle of the year, going through all the books and everything. It's insane. And that's just one part of it. You got to tax returns for each company for the past couple of years, et cetera, et cetera. It's insane what they ask for. Now, here we're talking private money. Hey, John, I got a deal for you. And boom, money's wired to attorney. You close the deal. And what was the paperwork again? I put the house under contract, which you would have done anyway.
I mean, that's such a good point, because I shared with you and your audience the good news phone call script, right?
Yeah.
After the first one or two, you know what the script becomes?
What I just said.
Exactly.
Here's the deal, wired to the attorney. That's it.
That's right. And of course, that conversation comes as a result of performance, trust, confidence. They know you're going to take care of them. That does not happen in the first conversation, of course.
Oh, no.
But that's where that relationship goes to. And I'll tell you another funny thing. You go to pay off the private lender the very first time, I guarantee you, every time, what are they going to say? Can't you just keep the money? Can't you keep the money? I don't want the money back. Because if you give them the money back, they're not making any money on their money. Yeah. And then the next time I'm on your show, Lancelot, we'll talk about substitutions of collateral and how we actually keep their money working.
Okay, there's a way for that. That's awesome. Yeah. That makes them even happier. Next question is, where do you see the biggest openings in today's market for people willing to think creatively?
Now, are you talking about private lenders? Or are you talking about real estate investors?
Real estate investors.
The biggest opportunity is private money, because two reasons. Here's the reason private money is the biggest opportunity right now. Number one, in the history of the United States, there is more liquid capital sitting on the sidelines than ever before, and people don't know what to do with their money to get a really nice rate of return. They don't want to put it in the local bank because they know that's not a good rate of return. Before COVID, there was $18 trillion in cash liquidity. Today, $31 trillion in cash.
Wow.
That's looking for a home. Look at, no pun intended, looking for a home, right? So you got all this liquidity. That makes a big opportunity. And in addition to that, it's the biggest opportunity because most real estate investors do not know how to leverage private money. Most real estate investors don't even know what they're missing out on, right? Some of my best friends are hard money lenders. They use my techniques to raise money for their fund to turn around and loan out to real estate investors.
Make 2% on that. That's amazing. I didn't even think about that, but that's also a great way of making money. Yeah.
Sure. So the big opportunity for the lenders themselves and for real estate investors to pull the lever and leverage this strategy. And it's a win-win for everybody. One thing that I learned very early on, Lancelot, is I thought I needed the private lenders more than they needed me. Wrong. Private lenders need you, the borrower, more than you need them, because there's more money than there is deals. There's more money than there are deals. So you create win-win scenarios and everybody wins.
That's amazing. By the way, I was just thinking about it. I thought you were going to come out with like car wash or a senior care facility because of the boomers or something. No, lenders. This is the biggest opportunity is private money. That's it. It's not the end product. It's the thing that you can get the end product with. That's the biggest opportunity there. And I think that you are so right in saying that. I really thought you were going to come with a product at the end. I love that. And then for the lender standpoint, because that was investor standpoint, how about let's turn it around, and for the lenders, private money lenders, what's their biggest opportunities?
So for the private lenders, their biggest opportunity in this market, Lancelot, that is really a good question. because my private lenders now are actually in competition with each other, wanting to loan their money. They, as I just said, there's more money than there are deals, and it's a challenge. It's a challenge for people to become. Now, I'll tell you where the opportunity is for private lenders. I've got mastermind members that have written their own book that teaches ordinary people how to become a private lender and what a private lender is. So I'm so glad you asked this question. I've been a guest on over 800 podcasts and nobody's ever asked me that question. And so the opportunity is for private lenders is, if you're listening to this show and you're an individual and you want to get high rates of return safely and securely, you can order my book that I'll mail to you, and you can learn how the private money system works. And now you can put on your teacher hat. And if you've got a friend that is a real estate investor in single family houses, you can teach them how you can fund their deals. And now you get the 8% return instead of what you get measly in the bank. And so wouldn't that be pretty cool? You can teach your friend that is in real estate that doesn't know the world of private money and say, hey, I'm a private money lender. How would you like for me to fund your deals? By the way, if you do that, you don't lend the same way you borrow. Charge them 12%. Don't charge them 8%.
Ah, there you go. There's the opening. That's a hard money right there. That's the 12%. What excites you the most about the future of real estate financing?
Wow. What excites me the most? I'll tell you what excites me the most. I'm on 6 podcasts a week, spreading the message. I do multiple live events a year, spreading the message. The opportunity for private money in the future and financing in the future is for real estate investors to learn how to do this and make a difference in other people's lives, not only yours. What do I mean by that? When Carol Joy, my wife, started borrowing private money, we didn't know that the kind of impact that we were going to make on our private lenders' lives. We have received thank you notes, Lancelot, from our private lenders that are elderly and retired, thanking us for changing their retirement years. There's the opportunity in future in private money and finance. As a real estate investor, leverage this strategy, create win-win scenarios, get all the money you would want for your real estate deals, and make an impact and a difference in your private lenders' lives.
Jay, thank you very much. This has been absolute gold, my friend. You've shown us that funding doesn't have to be the barrier. It can actually be the gateway to freedom in real estate. For everyone listening, go grab Jay's free guide at jayconner.com/money guide and pick up his book. He's going to show it to you guys one more time here. Where to get the money now at jayconner.com/book. It's free. Just cover the shipping. That's all it is. Make sure to follow Jay on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram at Private Money Authority for even more insights. And if you found value in today's episode, hit that subscribe button, share this with investors, friends, and drop us a review. For God's sake, share it with your friends that have IRAs and all this stuff so they can start somewhere to make some more money. It helps us bring more powerhouse guests like Jay right here to the Real Estate Roundtable. Until next time, I'm Lancelot Leonard, reminding you your next deal is on only one conversation away. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Have a great day. Thank you for joining us on Sir Lancelot's Real Estate Roundtable, where we've unveiled the mysteries of real estate together. Remember, in this kingdom of possibilities, every dream home is just a discussion away. I can help your real estate dreams come true. Just call me at 786-449-7518. Until our next roundtable, may your ventures be prosperous and your homes be filled with love and joy. Farewell, fellow knights of real estate.
Are you feeling inspired by the knowledge you gained in this episode? Then head over to jconner.com/moneyguide. That's JCONNER.com/moneyguide and download your free guide that shares 7 reasons why private money will skyrocket your real estate investing business right now. Again, that's jconner.com/moneyguide to get your free guide. We'll see you next time on Raising Private Money with Jay Conner.